What's the most bullshit excuse you've heard that turned out to be true? My dad had a call and say he was going to be late on Take Your Kid to Work Day because the guy's building a house in the lot next to our set, all the extra supplies on fire at 5 a.m. And he called the fire department because it was a huge fire and the fire trucks were now blocking our driveway. I couldn't go into work for a few days because a tree totaled both vehicles. My boss was pissed because I had requested the day off but was denied. I had to send pictures as proof. Back in 2011, when I was a first-year apprentice earning terrible money, my car got badly egged one night on a really warm Australian summer night by some little rats. I woke up to go to work, which the job was about 20 minutes. Went out to my car to see that there was at least 30 eggs caked onto my windshield and windows. And because it was so warm that night, the eggs had gone so hard that I actually couldn't get them off just with water. I'd have to get the car cleaning stuff from the garage and clean the fuck out of it at home, so I could actually see where I was driving. I called my boss and told him, and he said that was probably the worst excuse I've heard in my 30 years of owning a business and employing dozens of apprentices. Just be a man and tell me you slept in. I was so shocked when I heard that and had to take a bunch of photos proving my car was egged to fuck. It took me a solid hour to clean it, and I was about an hour and a half late for work. My boss at the time docked my pay, and when I asked him why, even though I had proof, I don't want to hear you bullshit excuses. Let's just say I didn't work there for much longer. Not entirely true, but one time I lied to my mom and told her I mailed her a birthday card and it didn't arrive because there must have been something going on at the post office. Then a couple of months later, it was in the news that a mailman was stealing birthday cards from the mail looking for cash. She emailed me the article and said that explained why she never got her birthday card. Dude, you lucked out there? Plot twist. He was the mailman. Had a co-worker, L, who was great at his job and known to party pretty hard at his time off. No problem there because it never hurt his work. One year, we'd had vacation time at the same time, and when we came back to work, I was not there. We'd known he'd spent his vacation in Vegas, as he'd booked this package holiday that was super low cost and included travel to airports, direct flights, hotels, and all sorts of stuff, making it very convenient and affordable. When he was called, it turned out he was still in Vegas, as his flight home was not due for several more days. Now, he immediately booked a new ticket to fly home, but it didn't leave for a day. And with delays and flight transfers, he only arrived back home a few hours earlier than if he'd just stayed and took his package flight. But he did race home as soon as he realized. His excuse, which the bosses didn't initially believe, was that he'd just misunderstood either the dates on his ticket or the dates we'd been given for vacation. But most people figured he'd tried to be cheeky just to get the extra week of holiday, hoping they wouldn't demand he come home. When he got back, they called it disciplinary, which he walked out of unscathed because it turned out Mans is profoundly dyslexic. He's smart, and he's always been able to learn by ear, so it was never obvious he struggled. But reading and writing is a real problem for him, and when he booked the tickets, it was just at a high-stress, very busy time, so he made an honest mistake. He could show that he had thought he was going to be there at the right time because of how he would book on work and appointments. He'd taken every step he had so he could resume work at the correct time, and the way we worked, our bosses would prefer he'd not booked on new work and tried to sneak the extra vacation days, then booked them on and missed them on purpose. The fact he came straight home at his own cost also helped. And the fact he just that prior year had his diagnoses for dyslexia as he'd gone to do some study in his own time, and it had become clear what he was dealing with. The guy really truly just made an error in reading from a page. It can happen. A kid in high school was absent one day because he'd been bitten by a cougar. Yeah, right? Turns out he'd been bitten by a cougar. He thought he wanted a pet cougar, found some place he could buy one, and went over a weekend to pick one out. He was playing with a cute baby cougar, cuddling and wrestling on the ground, just having a great time. Then that cute little baby turned on him, bit down hard on his foot, and sent him to the hospital with numerous deep punctures that needed chunks of Nike shoe pulled out of them. He was on crutches for weeks. That's the last time he'll ever date an older woman. Had a kid come into my class one day that was late, and he'd been a pain in the butt the whole year. So I was like, all right, what is it this time? House burnt down. No, you went to the forest and got lost. Not you used that last time. He just stood there with a straight face and said, a bear slashed our tires, so I had to walk. I looked at him within, as if it happened face, and lo and behold, after school his mom comes up apologizing that he was late again and told me that a bear had slashed their car's tires. She showed me the ring video and everything. I was speechless. Edit for those of you complaining that I was mean. This kid was consistently late and rude throughout the whole year and was constantly giving me BS excuses that turned out not to be true. That's why I was mad and didn't believe him. She showed me the ring video and everything. Did you die in 7 days? A revolution. Had scheduled a first date. For what it's worth, this is in a quiet city in middle America. She texted that she was going to be late, then kept pushing it back while I waited in the restaurant before ultimately canceling. This was a few years back during the Arab Spring. She was an immigrant from Egypt. Turns out this was all happening the actual hour the government back in her home country fell. Cell phone networks were mostly shut down, and she was frantically trying to reach friends and family to find out if they were okay. My dad taught at a private boarding school, and they had a student prince whose entire family fled Syria in the middle of the night during the Revolt Revolution. And he went almost 2 weeks without hearing from them. He just followed the news and hoped his entire family was still alive while still attending classes. He was an incredibly cool dude. I met him a few times while visiting home. When I was working in a regional hospital, we had a new hire call about 10 minutes before shift saying he couldn't work because he ate some wings for breakfast and was trying to shit really fast before work and blew out a nut. Those are the exact words he gave me on the phone to relay to the boss. He lived about 3 blocks from the hospital, and sure enough, we saw him in the ER just a short while later. He had testicular torsion. Wait, what? I didn't even know that was possible. I think the consensus is that he just got twisted up at a really unlucky time and didn't know how else to describe it. He ended up being just fine though, and still works there 10 years later as far as I know. One time my dog actually ate my homework, and I brought in the chewed papers, which were vaguely legible. Our cat knocked a glass of milk onto my homework, and my mom threw it out because it would stink if she tried to dry it. So she dropped me off at school and talked to my teacher directly. A friend of mine is an adjunct professor, and her dog once ate the student's homework. Abducted by aliens. Once had a guy working for me on an overnight crew who did a no-call, no-show 2 nights in a row. On the day after the second night, he called into the front office. I'm not sure exactly what he said to whom, but the message I got was that he had been abducted by aliens and would be back to work in 2 more days. When he returned to work, we found out he had been carjacked by 2 illegal immigrants and was forced to drive them several hours away before they eventually turned him loose, a little roughed up, but basically unharmed. And yes, HR obtained a copy of the police report, so the story was confirmed. Technically the truth, just not those aliens. Had a customer yell at me on the phone when I called him to tell them Grubhub wouldn't be able to deliver their food. It was a Sunday at 9 p.m. and everything that was not chain fast food was closed. I told them there were like 30 cops outside in vests holding rifles because of a hostage situation at the bodega across the street. He said I was exaggerating, so I told him to watch the news at 11 and hung up. I gave the food to some kid that happened to get stuck at the intersection out front in between the first wave of cops and the second wave. He wound up being a regular after that. I can think of 3. I had a first date with this woman I liked to cancel because she claimed her dog died. So we rescheduled, and she canceled again because her mom died. I found out she lied about her dog, so I called her out about her mom. But she did pass away. I couldn't go to work BC. There was police activity near my house, and they weren't allowing the bus service. My work thought I was BSing until they saw the news. I was several hours late to work and got in trouble. I told them the train I was on had some sort of emergency on board. They again thought I was BSing until I got proof from the train company. Suffice to say, they believed me for any BS lie I told after. Not the most enthralling story, but I once lived in the center of a T-shaped intersection in the US. It wasn't uncommon for people coming down the long road to not pay attention, miss the turn completely, and end up in our front yard one day. Someone hit a utility pole just right, and it snapped and fell down on our driveway, pulling down live wires, causing some transformer explosions and kind of a domino effect on the other poles. The fire and police department were just down the road. They may have even just heard the commotion, so they were on the scene right away with fire trucks and police vehicles lining the roads in all directions. It was all within minutes of me having to leave for work, so I call my boss and tell her live wires and fire trucks were blocking my way out. She didn't believe me and gave me shit about it. Even snarkily told me just to drive over the lawn to get around them, as if I was going to drive over 3 of my neighbors' yards to get around the emergency vehicles in full view of like the entire police force. I told her no and emailed her photos of the incident. She still said I was lying because I shouldn't have power to my house to email her if it were true. As if cell phones don't exist or something. I was going to try to make a half day whenever we got cleared to leave the house, but I was so put off by her hand waving that I just undressed and went back to bed. She was still super salty about it the next day. Thank you for watching. Like this video, share your impressions in the comments. See you later.